Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first, we're going to discuss several political updates that took place during the previous 24-48 hours. Zelensky's head of office, Andrei Yermak, held a telephone conversation with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. According to Yermak, the contact took place on the eve of Zelensky's meeting with Donald Trump in New York. The discussion also focused on the preparation of agreements on security guarantees for Ukraine, as well as the expansion of military defense and economic cooperation between the countries. Together with Marco Rubio, we noted the importance of the upcoming meeting between Vladimir Zelensky and Donald Trump as a part of the ongoing dialogue between the two leaders aimed at achieving a just peace. So now we understand that these days Zelensky is going to travel to the United States of America, where he's going to have a meeting with the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, and most likely are going to talk about two things: about security guarantees and about sanctions. So as for the security guarantees, during the previous 24-48 hours, we got some insight from the President of Finland. Finnish President Stubb admitted in an interview with The Guardian that the European Union does not intend to take Russia's interest into account when developing European security guarantees for Kiev, and also stated that European countries are prepared for escalation in Ukraine in the event of military interaction with Russia. So Zelensky most likely is going to send a message to the United States of America's president that Europe is ready to fight with Russia on the ground if you can provide security guarantees in the sky. So this is the message. So this is something that is going to happen within the next week. As for the sanctions, Zelensky, for example, stated about sanctions that we are wasting a lot of time if sanctions not imposed. But when talking about sanctions, the Russians don't afraid of them because they have a shadow fleet. For example, the New York Times wrote that Russia's shadow fleet is mitigating the impact of Western sanctions. As a publication notes, such vessels transport Russian oil, and if they fall under sanctions, they are simply registered under a different flag and change their name. So this is not an option. The only thing that Europeans and Ukraine can do is to begin fighting with Russia on the ground, but for these purposes they need security guarantees from the United States of America. So we'll see whether Trump is able to do this or not. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the northern part of Ukraine, about the Chernihiv and Sumy regions. As you can see, during the previous 48 hours we received lots of interesting updates. Today we got additional details about attacks that were carried out by Russians. So for example, in this video we can see how Russians damaged and destroyed another ammo or oil depot in the vicinity of the settlement by the name of Snovsk. As for the city of Chernihiv, during the previous 24 hours we got this video where we can see how Russians during the daylight attacked its target with drone, for example, and then we can see a very huge and powerful explosion in the city of Bakhmach. The pro-Ukraine resources published this video where we can see the consequences of Russian attack on Ukrainian oil depots and oil facilities in the western and the southern parts of the settlement. So the point is that Ukrainians intensify their activities in the northern part of Ukraine, in the Sumy and Chernihiv regions, and most likely the Ukrainians are trying to improve their positions, to build additional fortifications, and to make this direction much more prepared before possible attack or invasion from the Russian side. And of course, Ukrainians use this foothold, use this bridgehead to attack deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation using drones and missiles. So this is a very important part of Ukraine, and Ukrainians are trying to prepare themselves before possible escalation. If we increase the numbers of updates since the beginning of September, we're gonna see that during just this month lots of interesting updates happened. The Russians see what Ukrainians are doing right now, and the Russians are doing everything they can with the purpose not to allow the Ukrainians to improve their positions in this part. It seems that nobody currently talks about the Chernihiv and Sum regions, about this northern part, but it seems that everybody understands that maybe in late 2025 or in the early 2026 or just during the entire 2026, the war will come to these regions as well. Real war, as we can see right now, let's say in the Kharkiv region or in the Zaporoia region and so on. So most likely we should expect another offensive operation from this area, but most likely during the next year of 2026. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's continue with the Zaporoia direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. During the previous nights, small changes on the ground were recorded, so as you can see, the Russians, according to information we have, improved their positions in the vicinity of the settlement of Timirovka and Novoivanovka. The Russians seems are trying to outflank the settlement of Obratne, so this is the only village that hasn't been taken by Russians yet, at least according to mod reports, Ministry of Defense report, or different mappers. So most likely now the Russians are trying to do this, and the Russians improve their positions to the north of the settlement of Berezova. So we see that the Russian offensive slowed down a bit, at least the northern parts. We are waiting for additional geolocations with Ukrainian units involved in battles, but at the same time we are waiting for the beginning of the battle for the Poltavka fortified area. Now let's talk about the most important changes and about the most important direction, the city of Pokrovsk and the Pokrovsk agglomeration. During the previous 24 hours, very important and interesting changes on the ground were recorded. According to information we have, the Russians improved their positions in the central part of the city, in the vicinity and in the area of Pivdenny micro-district. In this video we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in this building to the south of the central citadel. So if we return back to the map, we're going to see one very interesting and very important detail about the city of Pokrovsk. So I would like to talk with you about the citadel. So this is the Pokrovsk citadel, and this citadel, as you can see, is located in the southern, southeastern and in the central parts of the city of Pokrovsk. So this is the area I'm talking about. This is the area of high-rise building. This is the area with big buildings, and this citadel is very huge. As you can see, it's probably takes up to 10% of the city, and this is something like a wall for Russians. They cannot continue offensive operation in the city of Pokrovsk without taking under control the citadel, or at least without breaking through the citadel or cutting the citadel into many pieces. So that is why the Russians are trying to maneuver along this wall, but without entering the wall itself. For example, the previous video we watched in this let's say part of the city of Pokrovsk, right in front of first buildings of the citadel. So now the Russians most likely found a solution how to outflank the citadel and how to defeat Ukrainians in this part, and for these purposes the Russians began another offensive operation from the area of the villages of Novoukrainka, Dachinska in the northern direction, with the purpose to outflank the citadel from the east and to answer the settlements of Gnatovka and Rih. During the previous 24 hours, the presence of the armed force of the Russian Federation was recorded in the central part of the settlement of Novopavlovka. In this video, we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in this area, and based on this video, we adjusted the map in this part of the settlement and in this part of the city itself. So now Russians most likely will continue offensive. They will try to finish the battle for the settlement of Chunushina, for the village of Novopavlovka, and the Russians will continue offensive along the railways, just with one purpose: to outflank the citadel and to answer positions behind. If Russians are able to establish complete control over the southern, the southeastern and the eastern parts of the Pokrovsk agglomeration, this can lead to complete collapse of Ukrainian positions on the territory of the Pokrovsk citadel, and Ukrainians in the end would be forced to fall back from this area. So now Russians are doing like this. Let's wait and see what is going to be next, but obviously very heavy clashes are ahead of us. As for the city of Mirnagrad, currently there are very heavy clashes for the eastern part of the city. This part of the city has been reduced to ruins by the morning of the 21st of September of 2025. As you can see, the buildings damaged with attacks, with flamethrower strikes, with FAPs, with aviation strikes. So very difficult positions, but Ukrainians control the situation. At the same time, pro-Ukraine resources reported that Russians improved their positions in the area of Novoekonomichne and that the Russians began their counterattacks. If you remember, in the late August and at the beginning of September, the Ukrainians, according to information we have, counterattack Russians in this area with the purpose to attack the settlement of Razne and to cut the breakthrough pockets into several pieces. But Russians repelled those attacks, stabilized the situation, and now the Russians is on the offensive side. The Russians attacked, trying to clear the settlement of Novoekonomichne completely and to force the Ukrainians to fall back. And during the previous 12 hours, additional changes were recorded according to pro-Ukrainian resources. So very interesting situation. The Ukrainians haven't managed to stabilize the situation in this area, and now Ukrainians began retreating from the eastern side of the city of Mirnagrad. At the same time, the Ukrainians continue attacks in the area of Pocket. The situation in the Dobropilye sector remains stable but tense. Russian forces are attacking from the Popov Yar toward Vladimirovka, from which the Ukrainian armed forces are counter-attacking. The Ukrainian armed forces are also attempting to capture Boykovka and Pankovka and advancing on Novotoretska. So there are very heavy clashes, but we see that the situation is stable. The first corps of National Guard of the armed forces of Ukraine hasn't managed to stabilize the situation and to cut the pocket, and now probably it's too late to do this because the Russians launched several more offensives, the first one in the Zaporoia region and the second one in the Kharkiv region. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Leman direction. According to information we have, the Russians secured the village of Shandrigolova completely. This information was provided by several resources. This is, for example, the first article that was published during the night. Russian soldiers are clearing the village of Shandrigolova. It is essentially empty now, but the clearing is still part of the operation. So which means that there are still Ukrainians who are hiding in basements, who are probably trying to escape this area on the Ukrainian side of the river of Nitrius. So most likely either the Minister of Defense will confirm this today or these days that the village was taken. We came to conclusion that the village should be colored in Russian favor based on the videos that were published by Ukrainian resources. Here we can see artillery and FPV drone attacks on positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation and in the central and the eastern parts. Some pro-Russian resources are saying that there are still a lot of gray zones in contested area, but it doesn't change the entire picture. The battle for Shandrigolova is coming to the logical end, and Ukrainians were forced to fall back on the Ukrainian side of the river of Nitrius. And I would like to remind you that according to several pro-Russian resources, the Russians during the previous days began advancing further in the western direction from the river of Nitrius, and currently the clashes are taking place on the outskirts of the settlements of Krymki, Karyovo Yar and Alexandrivka. Very interesting offensive operation. As of now, very difficult to say whether the Russians are planning to complete these offensives with taking these villages under control, or it's just another attempt to distract Ukrainian attention and to force them to fall back with the purpose to maintain the lines and just basically to shorten them. As for the city of Kupiansk in northern directions, during the previous 12-24 hours, nothing special happened. Probably another resource confirmed that the Russians improved their positions along the border, and more sources confirmed that the Russians are about to cut this pocket in the most northeastern part of Kharkiv region. The Russians are about to maintain the lines, and then they will continue offensive operation further in the western direction in full strength. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.